The question of packing was a very small matter altogether, and it was barely 7 o'clock when, this finished, Cleek and Mr. Narkom had collected their coats and hats from the hatstand, given Borkins the benefit of their very original ideas as to closing up the house and clearing out of it as soon as possible. Each of them slipped a sovereign into his hand, and were standing talking a short while at the open front door. The chill of the evening crept into the house in cold breaths, turning the gloomy hall into a good representation of a family vault. "All I can say," said Cleek, chewing a cigar, his hands in his trousers pockets, and his feet rocking from toe to heel, "is get out of it, Borkins, as soon as you can. I don't mind telling you, I'm jolly glad to be clearing out myself. It's been a devilish uncanny business from first to last, and not much to my taste. Now, I like a decent robbery or a nice, quick-fingered forger that wants a bit of hunting up. You know, even detectives have their particular favorites in the matter of crime, Borkins, and a beastly murder isn't exactly in my line." Borkins laughed respectfully, rubbing his hands together. "Nor mine, sir," he made answer. "Though I must say you gentlemen haven't been a bit what I imagined detectives to be. When you first come down, you know, I spotted something different about you, and ought to be on the force yourself," supplemented Cleek. "And not such a bad Callan neither," returned Borkins with a grin. "But I knew you wasn't what you said you was, in a manner of speaking. And if it ain't been for all this unpleasantness, it would ave been a nice little change for yer, wouldn't it? Sorry to see the last of you, sirs, I am that. And that young gentleman of your en. But I must say I'm glad to be done of the business." Cleek blew a cloud of smoke into the air. "Oh, you'll have another dose of it before you're entirely finished," he responded. "When the case comes on in London. That's the ticklish part of the business. We'll meet there again, I expect, as Mr. Lake and I will be bound to give our evidence, which is a thankless task at the best of times. Hello? Dollops, got the golf clubs and walking sticks? That's a good lad. Now we'll be off to old London again, Lake? Goodbye, Borkins. Best of luck. Goodbye, gentlemen." The two men got into the taxi Dollops had procured for them, while that worthy hopped onto the seat beside the driver and gave him the order to nip it for the 8 o'clock train for Lunnon, "as farst as you can slide it, cabby." To which the chauffeur made some equally pointed remark, and they were off. But Borkins either did not realize that the 8 o'clock train for London was a slow one, or thought that it was the most convenient for the two gentlemen most interested, because he did not give a thought to the matter that that particular train stopped at the next station, some 3 miles away from Fetchworth. And even if he had and could have seen the two tough-looking sailormen who descended from the first-class compartment there and stepped onto the tiny platform among 1 or 2 others, he would never have dreamed of associating them with the Mr. Headland and his man Dollops who had such a short time ago left the Towers for London. Which is just as well, as it happened, for it was with Borkins that Cleek and Dollops were most concerned. Upon the probability of their friendship with the butler hung the chance of their getting work. They had left Mr. Narkom to go up to London and keep his eyes open for any clues in the bank robberies case, and had promised to report to him as soon as possible, if there were anything to be gleaned at the factory. Mr. Narkom had expressed his doubts about it, had told Cleek that he really did not see how any human agency could possibly get Nigel Marriton off, with such appalling evidence to damn him. And what an electrical factory could have to do with it? "You forget the good Borkins's connection with the affair," returned Cleek, a trifle sharply, "and you forget another thing. And that is, that I have found the man who attempted my life, and mean eventually to come to grips with him. That is the only reason why I did not speak at the inquest this afternoon. I am going to bide my time, but I'll have the beggar in the end. If working for a time at an electrical factory is going to help on matters, then work there I'm going to, and Dollops with me. If there should be need of me, don't forget that I am Bill Jones, sailorman, once of Jamaica, now of the factory, Saltfleet. And stick to the code. A wire will fetch me. He hopped out upon the platform just here, in his cutthroat makeup a little hastily done, for the time between the stations had been short but excellent, nevertheless. Then as Mr. Narkom gripped his hand, he put his head into the carriage again. "My love to Ailsa if you see her, and tell her all goes well with me, like a good friend," whispered Cleek, softly. Mr. Narkom nodded, waved his hand, and then the two navvies swung away from the train, gave up their tickets to the porter, having procured third class as well as first for just this very arrangement, and after inquiring just how far it was to Saltfleet Bay, and learning that it was a matter of 2 mile and a half by road, and a couple of mile by the fields, strode off through the little gate and onto the highroad. Just how adventurous their quest was going to turn out to be even they did not fully realize. They reached the outskirts of the bay, just as a clock in the church tower half a mile away struck out 9, in deep-throated, sonorous tones. To the right of them the Pig and Whistle flaunted its lights and its noise, its hilarious laughter and its coarse-thrown jests. Cleek sighed as he turned toward it. "Now for it, boy," he said softly, and then started to whistle and to laugh alternately, making his way across the cobbles to the brightly lit little pub. Someone ran to the doorway and peered out at sound of his voice, trying to penetrate the darkness and discover who the stranger might be thus gaily employed. Cleek sang out a greeting. "Good evening to yer, matey. This airs is Bill Jones and his pal. I'll take the high road, and you'll take the low road. And I'll be in Scotland afore yer. Sammy, me lad, come along o' me and warm your wittals. I could drink the seed, straight I could." He heard the man in the doorway laugh, and then he beckoned to him to come along. And so they entered the Pig and Whistle, and were greeted enthusiastically by the red-headed barmaid, while many voices went up to greet them, showing that already they had got on the right side of the men who were to be their fellow workers. "Gentleman air yet?" queried Cleek, jerking his thumb in the direction where Borkins had stood the night before. "I've what you calls an appointment with him, you know. And the blighter is. Good evenin', sir. Pleased ter see yer again, though lookin' a bit pale about the gills, if you don't mind my sayin' so." "And so would you be, if you'd been through the ordeal I have this afternoon," snapped out Borkins in reply. "It's a beastly job tellin' people what you're seen and 'eard. It is indeed. Arter ter tell 'em what you aven't seen and 'eard, all the sime, matey," threw in Cleek. "Done that myself, I is bit of slight owin' what they'd pulled me up for out Whitechapel way when I was a kid. Seein' the master ternight, ain't we, sir?" Borkins slopped down his tankard of beer and wiped his mouth before replying. "Seen him already," he answered with a touch of asperity, "and told him about you both. I avake he says you're ter go up to the foreman tomorrow. Say I sent you. Say the master is past you, that'll be all right. Couple o' quid a week, and the chance of a rise if you're circumspect and keeps your mouth closed." "That's my jime all right, guv'nor," struck in Dollops shrilly, clapping his tankard down upon the bar with a loud bang. "Close as oozes we are, guv'nor. And me mates like a hoister." "Well, mind you remember it," retorted Borkins sharply. "Or it'll go badly with the pair of you. That's fixed, then, ain't it? What's your names again? I've forgotten." "Bill Jones, and I'm Sammy Robinson," replied Cleek quickly. "I'm much obliged to yer, sir. Anyone know where we can get a shakedown for the night? Time enough ter look for lodgin's ter more." It was the barmaid's turn to speak, and she rested her rather heavy person against the bar and touched Cleek's shoulder. "Mother, she is lodgers, dearie," she said in a coaxing voice. "You kin come along to us, and stay right along, if you're comfortable. Nice beds we ave, and a good OT dinner in the middle uv the day. You kin take your breakfast with us. Better come along to her tonight. Thanks, I will, grunted Cleek in reply, and dug Dollops in the ribs, just to show him how pleased he was with the arrangement. And so the evening passed. The lodgings were taken, the charge being moderate for the kind of living that men in their walk of life were used to, and the next morning found them both ensconced at their new work. The overseer proved to be a big, burly man, who, having received the message from the gentleman at the inn, immediately set them to work on the machinery. The task was simple, they had merely to feed the machine with so much raw material, and the other men and machines did the rest. But what pleased them more, they were put to work side by side. This gave Cleek a good opportunity of passing remarks now and then to Dollops and telling him to take note of things. The factory was a smallish place, with not too large a payroll, and Cleek gleaned from that first morning's work that it was run solely for the purpose of making electrical fittings. "Where do they ship 'em to, matey?" he asked his next-door neighbor, a pleasant-faced chap about 23 or 4. "Over ter Belgium. Big firm there what buys from the master." "Oh. So they were trading with Belgium, were they? That was interesting. Well, then, how the dickens do they send 'em out?" "Boats, idiot." The man's voice was full of contempt for the nincompoop who couldn't use his head. Above the clang of the machinery, Cleek's voice rose a trifle higher. "Well, any fellow would know that," he said with a laugh. "But what I means is, what sorter boats? Big UNS, I should sy, fair stuff like this." The man looked about him and bent his head. His voice dropped a note or two. "Fishing boats," he said softly, and could be made to say no more, in spite of the scornful laugh with which Cleek greeted this news. "Fishing boats? That was devilish peculiar. Sending out electrical fittings to Belgium in fishing boats. Funny sort of a way to do trade, though no doubt it was quite permissible up to a point. Well, he must glean something more out of this good fellow before the day was over." A glass of beer at the Pig and Whistle after dinner worked wonders with the man's tongue. He was not a favorite, so free drinks did not often come his way. After the second glass he seemed almost ready to sell his soul to this amicable newcomer, but Cleek was wise, and bided his time. He didn't mean to fleece his man of the information in sight and sound of his fellows. So he simply talked of the topics of the day, discussed the labor question from a new viewpoint, and then, as they strolled back together to the factory, just as the whistle began to blow that told the hands the dinner hour was over, Cleek fired his first shot. "See 'ere, matey," he began confidentially, "you're a decent sort of bloke, you are. Tell us a bit more about them there fishin' boats what you spoke uv. I'm that interested, I've been fair eaten up with curiosity. You didn't mean the master of this place goes and ships electrical fittin's and such like out to Belgium in fishin' boats, straight, eh?" "Yes." Jenkins nodded. "That's exactly what I do mean. Seems sorter funny, don't it? And I reckon there's somethin' a bit fishy about the whole thing. But I keep me mouth shut. That overseer's the very devil himself. Happen you'll larn ter do likewise." Two chaps who were lars thought they'd be a bit smarty like, and told him they were goin' ter tell all they knew, though God knows what it was. I ain't been able to learn much, and haven't tried neither. But they went zip. Like that. Never saw 'em no more, and nothin' come of it. Best to keep your mouth shut, mate. In this air place, anyhow." "Oh," said Cleek offhandedly, "I'm not one to blab. You needn't be afraid o' that. By the way, who's the chap with the black mustache stragglin' all over his face? And the narsty eye? Saw him with Borkins, the man what engaged me night before last." "That wasn't Borkins, me beauty," returned Jenkins with a laugh. That ain't his name. How did you come to think of it? That fellow's name's Piggott. And the other man? We calls I'm Dirty Jim, because he does all the dirty work for the boss, but his real name's Stubbs. And if you takes my word for anything, pal, you won't go rubbing him up the wrong way. He's a fair devil. Dirty Jim, otherwise Jim Dobbs. And he was in the employment of this very extraordinary firm for the purpose of doing its dirty work. Well, there seemed a good deal of employment for him, if that was the case. And Borkins was not Borkins in this part of the world. Cleek stepped back to his work a little thoughtful, a little absent-minded, until the frown upon his forehead caused Dollops to lean over and whisper anxiously, "Nothin' the matter, is there, sir?" He shook his head rapidly. "No, boy, no. Simply thinking, and smelling a rat somewhere." "Been smellin' of it myself this past 2 hours," returned Dollops in a sibilant whisper. His eye shone for a moment with the light of battle. "Got some mink ter tell you," he whispered under cover of the noise. "Some mink what ought ter interest yer, I don't think. Ave ter keep till evenin'. Bill?" "Right you are, matey." Cleek's voice rose loudly as the overseer passed, pausing a moment to watch them at work. "Nice job this, I must sy. Arfter me own ert, straight it is. Soon catch on to it, don't yer?" "Arayther," returned Dollops significantly. The overseer, with a shrug of the shoulders, moved on.